What happened that time you saw the fury of a patient man? Viewer's edition.
Well, I think the lesson to be learned for these stories is that everybody has their boiling point. And as the outsider, not knowing what's going on in that person's head or in their lives, it's best to stay on their good side because you never know what little thing is going to set them off. Let's see what the fine viewers had to say on this topic. Story 1. My ex, looking back now, it was an abusive relationship. Once, because I gave him attitude, I used a tone that wasn't monotone or sucking up. He dumped my beer over my head and screamed in my face that I assaulted him when I slapped him away from me. A few weeks later, I'm still learning to drive. Abusive family situation prevented that. While I was practicing night driving, he started going off on me for taking the wrong ramp. It was the right one, and forced me to take the wrong exit, which, because it was dark and we ended up in a section of our city that we don't really go through, we were lost. He pulled up Google Maps and proceeded to not give me directions on where to go. He disabled the voice because he didn't like it interrupting his music to tell him where to go. When I didn't go straight, when he knew that we should have gone straight, I just sat there at the intersection trying to ask which way to go, and then he belittled me for not knowing where to go, then got mad because I went 25 in a residential area. Then, because I was still terrified of driving, I stayed to the right, went back on the main road, and would sometimes cross into the little ditch area. He yelled at me, "Do you even know how to color in the lines?" I work with children, and one of the things that I do is teach them to color in the lines. I told him about that, and I knew he was calling me stupid and that it was an insult. When he got home, he tried to use the whiteboard to explain everything I did wrong, like I was a child. And even when I pointed out that I did take the right on-ramp, he screamed that it was my fault we got lost, and that if I insert various insults, including calling me a little witch, when I wouldn't be so incompetent and could drive. I worked up and went to the shower and told him to stop being a dong and learn to give directions instead of thinking he knows more than everyone else, and closed the bathroom door. I was dry heaving over the sink and trying to calm myself down when he slams the door open and gets less than 6 inches from my face and starts screaming at me for disrespecting him, and my first reaction was to turn and swing to get him out of my face. It should be noted that no matter how much I cut and file them nails, they are always scratchy. I'm always aware that and try really hard not to scratch people. I caught him in the ear and neck, and his ear was bleeding, and he had a slightly bleeding scratch going from behind his ear down his neck to his crew neck collar. He got in my face again when I assaulted him, once again screaming, and almost slapped him when my reaction to that was to grab his face, since it was so close to mine, and lick up the center, getting my spit on the back of his top teeth and on his nose. He claims to be a gentle marshmallow, and that his still pretty new Hindu faith means that he can't bring harm of any kind to another human being, or any being for that matter. He also uses his IQ, 125, as a thing to put him down. I recently took an IQ test while bored, and I got 132 as a result. My ex and I are roommates, and I have firm boundaries with him now. I showed him my results, and he can't believe that mine is higher than his, and that he's only above average on the IQ meaning chart, while mine is in the gifted section. He'll use anything to harm people, but doesn't realize it. All right, a couple of things for this one. First thing that came to mind is when she scratched him with her fingernails and then licked him. Made me think of the lady from Holes who put poison under her fingernails and then scratched Sir's face. So that was the first flashback. But overall for this story, if he's practicing Hindu faith, he's got to remember that harm comes from more than just physical reactions. If he's the abusive boyfriend in this situation, he's harming her by saying words and belittling her and calling her names, and that's just as harmful. So if he's true to his religion, then he should really cut that out and try to be as more of a patient man and understanding as he can be. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you should actively try to attack others. Sticks and stones may break your bones, words may never hurt you. That saying is good for not caring what other people think, but it doesn't mean that you should actively go out and try to hurt others by using words.
Story 2. I'm a patient man. At school, let's say grade 8, we had this one jerkwad bully my sister. Usually when students do dumb stuff during class, I usually stay quiet, do my work. Usually I'm invisible. But now I'm in my sister's class. He bullied my sister and made her cry. So I got up and went to his dumb butt and said, "You made my sister cry. Apologize or I swear." Of course, this looks pretty small, but just to let you know, I scared the guy. Of course, he apologized, but he was scared of me. Next one, in the gym class, we were doing wrestling. You know, the usual push each other on your knees until one of you leaves the circle, like sumo. One point, it was pretty much battle royale, but for some reason I was ganged up on by 3 guys. I was also pretty small but buff. They were holding my legs, my shoulders, the legal stuff. They almost pushed me off, put me on my back. But then, let's say, something awakened inside of me, like this fiery rage in me. To best describe the feeling, imagine inhaling a campfire and the fire is in your lungs. So I then started smiling. Then I pushed everyone off and started having a weird war cry, if you can call it that, and I pretty much whooped all 3 boys who were very much taller than me. I even screamed, "You're next!" Of course, my teacher also had to call the match off since 1, it was taking too long, and 2, I was getting more aggressive than I needed to be. But let's just say it felt good. This was grade 9. For a long time, we always had these school divas, if you still call them that. Of course, what she does is kind of fuzzy in my mind since this was years ago, and I long did not care. But just to know, me and my sister hate her a lot. One time at lunch, I was trying to eat my darn sandwich. Then she kept trying to get into my personal space. Not flirtatious, just annoying. Then, let's just say something snapped inside of me. I screamed at her, "Shut up!" which then made her stop for a bit, then said something to me, can't remember. Then all my anger and hatred now uncapped for her, which I then scream, "Why don't you shut up, you darn son of a witch?" which made her run out of the classroom and made the whole classroom go. Of course, I sort of got in trouble, but nothing happened to me, since the teacher said I was standing up for myself, and he agreed, she's a witch. How's that for equality, eh? But I did eat my sandwich after my fury and acted like everything was fine. But I felt lighter. If any of you think she was trying to flirt with me, first off, maybe try to be nice and respectful to me and my sister instead of bullying me and my sister, and make me hope she isn't at school at all. Second, the whole she is bullying you because they like you bullcrap, only in your dreams and anime where it's okay. There are people who have better stories on why bullying is terrible. Anyway, that's all my stories that I'm proud of. Yeah, growing up, my grandma would always say, "You only tease the ones you love." And I think that's true to an extent, but you get to the point where you're actually hurting people, then it's not because you love them. It's because you hate them. Pulling on pigtails is one thing, but really, all in all, it's pretty juvenile. Story 3. Not me, but my older brother. Growing up, he was always a tall kid, taller than most kids. Kids in my family are usually either shorter or taller than kids their age, and that also goes for weight as well. But we always turn out really tall as adults. Shortest one is 5'8". He also had elective mutism, and it got people to misunderstand him. We lived in northern Ontario, far enough that we were closer to the territories than to the nearest city. We only knew French, and the only child psychologist that came up to the north on a regular basis was a racist piece of crap that refused to do any diagnosis, unless my brother spoke English. In Canada, it's not so much the color of your skin, but if you speak French. And this doctor came from the Toronto area. So my brother was tall, skinny as a rail, and shy as frick. First time he spoke in class was when he was in grade 3. Think 8 years old. He also had a grade 1 to grade 2 teacher that took away his seat unless he spoke. My mom had several arguments with this teacher, but since we were in the middle of nowhere, he was obviously there for isolation pay, and no one wanted to go that far north. Here it is. We go to school, and both me and my brother encounter a pair of brothers who were both mine and his age. So we had them in our respective classes, as my brother was a couple years older than me, and this guy would bully him. A physical altercation happens, and this bully goes to scratch at my brother, breaking his glasses, and my brother only responds by punching with his left hand. Black eye and bloody nose. Had my brother used his right hand, he would have broken the kid's nose. The bully got a week suspension. My brother lost only his next lunch recess. The teachers were happy he finally stood up for himself. Only reason why they couldn't let him off the hook was because of policy. I stopped being bullied by the kid's younger brother, and both wanted to be our friends after that. For a while, we were friends with them until we moved to another school. First time their father looked at us, he got obnoxious with his kids because they picked on such a shy kid, and he handed his oldest son his lunch. And to this day, 30 years later, my brother still brags about that time. A note, the boys in my family may be skinny and scrawny, but we are stronger than we look. And teachers do know what goes on, but they're supposed to push for no violence policies. So when a kid stands up for him or herself against a bully, they're sometimes willing to bend the rules and consequences depending on the situation. The bullying workshops are essentially them being messengers. Story 4. I can't really call myself patient, that's not even worth the time. But I remember once when I was with a good friend at a golf club, we weren't really doing much, just the usual enjoyment of the game and chatting about teenager stuff. We were okay on the back nine, and this aloof guy starts muttering to himself and gets in my friend's face. My friend was of basic build, not skinny, not muscular, and a little shorter than me. I'm taller, but also skinny. Now, while I normally can say I can hold my temper and show restraint, when I see someone spit in my friend's face and cuss him out for getting in his way, it is more challenging to hold my temper. I tried to de-escalate the situation and steered my buddy out of the guy's path that he seemingly needed to take, even though he could have easily walked around us. But this guy just got in my face and started calling me stupid and all the things under the sun. I paid him no mind, until he tried to lunge on my friend. As I mentioned, I'm skinny, not the strongest guy by any means. In this situation, my skinny stature worked in my favor because clearly the man underestimated how fast I can react, as well as assume I was not forged by years of bullying, martial arts, and a fair share of self-taught techniques from self-defense manuals. I swept the guy's legs, and he fell spectacularly on the ground. Me and my friend made our way out, not wanting to make a scene since no one was around. Evidently, this particular idiot was not done with picking on some minors because he charges like a sluggish bull at me, and I glare at him and use his momentum to pin him down. The rest of this is what my friend remembers because obviously I can't see my own expression. But according to him, that was the scariest face he had ever seen when I leaned down to the jerk and told him, "Attack me or my friend one more time, and you'll find out just how far 5 ounces can go. Get the frick out of my sight." Story 5. My dad is usually the most chill person and never resorts to violence because he's amazing with rhetorics. He's also not really built like a big, strong guy. Well, he's very tall, but is rather built like a cyclist. I have never seen him losing his cool and actually shouting and being completely mad, except one time where he made a massive man cower like a beaten puppy. I was around 9 years old, and many parents organized a trip to some kind of camp with a huge playground. It was during summer, it was hot, and I'd spend most of my time alone because I couldn't handle much sensory stimulation as an autistic child. When I felt more comfortable, I decided to play with the other kids at a fountain. I then splashed a boy as a joke. Everyone was wet already, so it wouldn't make a difference to splash someone, and it was so hot that it was nice and refreshing. It was just a handful of water after all, nothing more or less. The kid suddenly started screaming and crying uncontrollably. I felt bad and apologized over and over, trying to comfort him. The boy ran away and called his dad, who then grabbed me, kept shouting and insulting me for hurting his son, and I should feel ashamed for assaulting other kids. I was unable to say anything and went away. I spent a long time hiding somewhere and cried until my dad found me. After he found out what happened, he went to the father to settle this. I don't remember everything he said because I was dealing with the aftermath of a meltdown at the time, but that father looked completely terrified and apologized to me. My father didn't use any sort of physical violence, but his unfiltered rage about an adult harassing and traumatizing his child was even scarier. I tried to forget it and just move on from that incident, but it still traumatized me so much that I never played with other kids ever again.
The whole time I was just wondering, what does it mean to be built like a cyclist? It made me think back to all that running is good for your buns and thighs. Yeah, buns and thighs. Well, you know what I'm talking about. I've only been a dad for about 3 weeks, so I can't yet relate personally to the untapped fury that comes with being a father and someone harassing your son. But I guess that's one of the superpowers that I'm looking forward to. Couple that with the insane dad reflexes, and of course the almighty dad bod. I definitely got that going for me.
Story 6. I have a story. Some background knowledge is that my girlfriend was being harassed by the guys at school, and I told the staff, but they didn't do anything, and so I was being protective over her. This guy, who's kind of my friend, sat in my seat when there were 3 other spots next to his friends. This was also next to my girlfriend. To add on to this, he also had lunch detention, so I walked up to him and asked him if he had lunch detention, and he said no. So that ticked me off, and previously that day, too, I swear I saw him staring at my girlfriend, but I thought I might have seen it wrong or whatever. My girlfriend was also trying to not get touched by him, and so I told him to move. He didn't move, so I pulled on his hood just enough to almost pull him out of the seat. He got up and tried to tackle me. I'm 5'9", 215 pounds, and he's 5'0" to 5'4", somewhere in that range, and weighed 150 to 160. It wasn't too smart. So I pulled him off of me and threw him to the side. He got up, tried to tackle me again, and I threw him back down. He got back up again, but tried to punch me, so I threw him into a table again. He tries to get back up and punch me, but my friend breaks it up. He was over there growling while I was just looking at him like he was stupid. The principal comes over and talks and talks and talks. The principal doesn't let me go back to my classes, and he suspends me for 2 days. The guy I tossed around pulled the pity card and cried to the principal. This all happened because 1, I was having a poopy day, 2, I was protective over my girlfriend, and 3, I had things going on at home. Then to add a cherry on top, my girlfriend breaks up with me the next week because her mom doesn't like us dating.
Yeah, this one seems like a case of someone with a short fuse. You gotta pick on someone of your own size, and this guy just seems like he was the overly jealous type, and he was just looking for something to set him off. Also, mother's intuition is usually right, so I'm gonna side with the mom on this one.
Story 7. Another story. I worked at a bar. The manager, let's call him Jay, I was working one night and saw an argument. I stepped in the middle of it. I told them to stop. The guy on my left was still pushing. He was my problem, and the bar back stepped off. I was trying to calmly get him out. He kept reaching over the bar where we kept clean glasses. I tried it my way and started calling security. The place was loud, and when the guy heard me say security, he punched me in the head. And then I snapped. I started pushing him out the door myself. He hated that when we started fighting. It was a big scene. The guy's taller than me, and we were hitting. A big white guy grabs him by the neck in a chokehold and slams him against a beam. My coworker grabs me and slams me against a bar, yelling, "You're on probation. He's not worth it." All my friends lost it. I'm a nice guy, but I didn't realize people had my back. Bartenders were jumping in. Servers were trying to stop me. This kind teddy bear manager turned into a grizzly bear. You hit his employee, and I've never seen him acutely get mad before. Security was even mad when they saw that the nicest guy there was red. When you work at a bar, some people have your back. I've never had a bartender jump over the bar just to help me before that night, and a manager risking everything to get this guy out. P.S. After, I talked to the guys he was starting a fight with and got them a free round. The black dude told me the guy we kicked out called him the N-word. I didn't feel sorry before that, but I looked at the dude and said, if you reported him, we would have kicked him out sooner. Story 8. I guess I'll share my own story. Hi, nice to meet you all. Just call me Yama. I'm the gentle person in this story. One time we had to move, and where we moved to was a pretty big trailer park. There was this group of boys who thought they ruled the place, always walking around the place and sometimes causing trouble. Well, I love my family and would kill for them. So the story goes, they had threatened my younger brother and even wanted to beat him up. I come and I'm fairly big, nothing crazy, but it was hard to see I worked out. I calmly told them to leave and leave us alone. They did, but not before a guy bigger than me told my brother that I wouldn't always be around. I let it go, and I let go of a lot of stuff after this, since it wasn't particularly bad. I came home tired one day, and my mom had got a text from the bug dude, calling her a crack horse. I snapped, got in my mom's car, and we drove, looking for him. Didn't even wait for the car to slow down. Jumped out and hit him in his stomach, then in his face, and knocked him down. Never any problems after. I like to be nice to people, and I don't like being mean. Even people who aren't nice to me usually just avoid me. It's only when someone messes with my friends or family. Story 9. My dad is a tall, slender, mild-mannered, well-liked guy. Doesn't bother anyone. Never really gets angry. Overall, a cool guy. One time there were 2 people, a man and a woman, at my house attempting to scam my mom into buying some expensive product designed to make her lose weight. I, probably 11 at the time, fell asleep in my mom's room, and I'm not hearing anything at this point. My mom is a short, not at all fat woman. So my dad is in the kitchen while these people are in my mom's room attempting to convince her to buy this product, and my dad has had enough. He says, "I will give the 2 of you 5 seconds to stop bothering my wife and leave my house, or I will take matters into my own hands." The man is like, "Yeah, right, whatever, mind your business." So my dad walked outside. This is like late August, very warm outside, and came back in. I hear a loud scream from the woman scammer, and I wake up to see my 5'11", slender but insanely strong dad wielding a golf club, pointing it at the 2 of the sellers, and then they bolt outside. I hop out of the bed, and my dad is running after them at a minimal speed. Dad chases the 2 of them all the way down the block, and they fully sprint it into God knows where. Never saw the 2 of them again. Amazing sight.
All right, who would be so bold to behave this way in someone else's house, especially a stranger's house that's invited you inside to try to sell them some crap, like your Uncle Rico trying to off his Tupperware or something?
Story 10. I knew this friendly stoner kid, was nice to everyone. One day, a group of popular kids decided to pick on him after school. He was ignoring it until they tried to get physical, at which point he warned them to stop. They, of course, laughed, then one went to push him. The stoner grabbed the guy's arm, threw him over his shoulder, and started repeatedly punching him in the face. It happened so quickly, the rest froze. The principal pulled the stoner kid away before anyone could react, and the bully's face was a mess of red blood and quickly forming bruises. These weren't typical popular kids. They were farm boys, big and stocky. The stoner kid wasn't. He was scrawny. Nobody got in trouble. Parents all decided that the kid learned his lesson. Anytime he tried to mess with someone, his friends would bring up the beatdown he got and laughed at him. All he could say is, "He's over there to see how you do, but I wouldn't recommend it." Nobody ever took him up on it. Stoner kid was still nice to the guy, even apologized for losing his temper. The bully actually got better after that, really humbled him, and he turned out to be a patient man. I don't know what happened to the stoner. Last I heard, he moved. Talked to his ex, and apparently he was from a military family. Who would have guessed? Story 11. I have my grandfather and my husband. My grandfather was a World War II Army vet and was at the liberation of Buchenwald, an important factor. Very soft-spoken, tolerant beyond belief, believed to his core that you live and let live. Except if you messed with his livelihood, wife, or family. The next-door neighbors were the 50s version of what you see in a meth-infected trailer park, only in a house and no meth. The neighbor's eldest son tried to break into their house while I was over one night. I wake up to loud voices, and I'm midway down the stairs when I hear my grandfather in the calmest voice I've ever heard that made every warning bell in my being go off, saying, "Renee, hand me my shotgun." I'm frozen in mid-step, and he sees him and says in the same voice, "Baby, go to your room, and whatever you do, don't come out till I get you." I obeyed. I heard one shot, and then 5 minutes later, the police and ambulance. The next-door neighbor's kid ended up being taken to the hospital, and when released, then to jail. Turns out what I didn't know at the time was that same piece of crap kid attempted to assault my grandmother as she ran to get my grandfather. Nothing happened to my grandfather. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.